I'm Amanda, 33, with a beautiful 7-year-old daughter named Lily from my previous marriage. When I married David 2 years ago, I thought we'd finally found our forever family. This Christmas at my mother-in-law Eleanor's house was supposed to be special. All the grandkids were getting iPads, jewelry, and cash except Lily. "She's not really family," Eleanor said coldly while my husband sat silent. The room froze until my brave little girl slid a mysterious box across the table. "Grandma, Dad told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." What happened next changed everything. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're from and hit that subscribe button to join our community. This family drama is about to get real. David and I met 3 years after my divorce from Lily's father, who decided parenting wasn't for him and moved across the country. Those first years as a single mom were brutal, working 2 jobs, struggling with childcare, and trying to give Lily the stability she deserved. When David walked into the bookstore where I worked part-time, I wasn't looking for love. He kept coming back every Saturday, browsing the history section until he finally asked me for coffee. From the beginning, David was amazing with Lily. He'd bring her little presents, nothing expensive, just thoughtful things like a bookmark shaped like her favorite animal or a packet of wildflower seeds they could plant together. Within 6 months, he was helping her with homework and attending her school plays. It felt like we'd won the lottery. When David proposed, we decided on a small ceremony. Nothing fancy, just close friends and family at a local park gazebo. That's when I first met Eleanor, David's mother. While David's dad Richard had passed away years earlier, Eleanor was very much the matriarch of the family, controlling everything from holiday plans to family investments. "She can be a bit particular," David had warned. "But she'll warm up to you both." At our wedding, Eleanor wore a formal navy dress that seemed excessive for our casual garden ceremony. She hugged me stiffly and barely acknowledged Lily, who was proudly serving as our flower girl. When Lily excitedly showed Eleanor her basket of rose petals, Eleanor merely nodded and turned to speak with David's sister Allison. I brushed it off as wedding day stress. The first holiday at Eleanor's sprawling colonial home should have been my warning. She had personalized stockings for everyone except Lily. When I quietly mentioned it, Eleanor dismissed it with, "Oh, I didn't have time to make an extra one. She can use the guest stocking." Meanwhile, David's nieces and nephews had elaborate embroidered stockings with their names and birth years. David's sister Allison had twins, Jacob and Sophia, both 8. His brother Michael had 3 children, Madison, 12, Tyler, 10, and Abigail, 5. All 5 cousins were treated like royalty by Eleanor, receiving expensive gifts and constant attention. She remembered their favorite foods, their hobbies, and called them weekly. For Lily, there was polite disinterest at best. "Grammy, look what I made you." Lily had proudly presented a handmade card during that first Thanksgiving. "That's nice, dear," Eleanor had replied without looking at it, placing it aside where it was later found crumpled under a pile of napkins. Each time something like this happened, David would find an excuse. "Mom's just old-fashioned about family," or "she didn't mean anything by it." But I saw the pattern forming. The divide between real grandchildren and my daughter was being established. Eleanor's house, what made it all more frustrating was how Eleanor dominated the family. David, Allison, and Michael all seemed to revert to obedient children in her presence. Major life decisions were run by her first. She knew everyone's financial situation and wasn't shy about offering advice that felt more like commands. "You know how she is," became the family mantra whenever Eleanor said or did something hurtful. Everyone walked on eggshells around her, afraid to disrupt the fragile peace. I tried to discuss it with David several times during our first year of marriage. "Your mother clearly doesn't see Lily as part of the family," I'd say. "She's just traditional. Give her time," he'd respond, avoiding conflict as usual. But I saw how Lily would light up whenever Eleanor gave her even the slightest attention, how desperate she was for her grandmother's approval. She'd practice extra hard on piano, knowing Eleanor valued musical ability. She'd dress extra nicely for family gatherings. My heart broke watching my daughter try so hard for a crumb of affection that came so easily to her step-cousins. "Mommy, why doesn't Grammy like me?" she asked me after one particularly obvious incident where Eleanor had brought surprise ice cream treats for all the grandchildren except Lily. "Grammy just doesn't know you very well yet, sweetheart," I lied, swallowing my anger. I wanted to protect my daughter, but I also wanted to respect David's relationship with his mother. The balancing act was exhausting, and I was starting to resent both Eleanor for her coldness and David for his spinelessness. But I kept hoping things would improve with time. As months passed, Eleanor's favoritism became increasingly obvious. During Easter, she organized an elaborate egg hunt with color-coded eggs for each grandchild. The other kids had 20 eggs each filled with candy and small toys. Lily had 5, and they contained only jelly beans while the others had chocolate and small toys. "I didn't know what she would like," Eleanor said when I quietly questioned the disparity. Summer brought a family reunion at Eleanor's lake house. She had bought custom swimwear for all the grandkids except Lily. "I wasn't sure what size she wears," was the excuse, though I'd mentioned Lily's size multiple times when Eleanor was planning the event. By the second Christmas, the pattern was unmistakable. While the other grandchildren received personalized gifts that showed Eleanor had been paying attention to their interests and wishes, Lily received generic presents still in store gift bags, often age-inappropriate or impersonal. "She got me socks," Lily whispered to me, trying to hide her disappointment while her cousins excitedly compared their new video games and toys. Each time, David promised to talk to his mother. Each time, nothing changed. "I did mention it to her," he'd say. "And what did she say?" I'd press. "She said she'll try harder," he'd respond, but his averted eyes told me he probably hadn't said anything meaningful at all. The situation reached a breaking point at Lily's 7th birthday. I'd invited the whole family, including all the cousins, to a party at the local zoo. Eleanor arrived late, empty-handed, while bringing wrapped presents for her other grandchildren since I was shopping anyway. That evening, after the kids were in bed, I confronted her directly. "Eleanor, I've noticed that you treat Lily differently than your other grandchildren. She notices too, and it hurts her." Eleanor straightened her back, her expression cooling. "Amanda, I care for Lily, but you have to understand that blood relationships are different. I've known my other grandchildren since birth. They share my DNA. She's 7 years old and part of this family," I countered, struggling to keep my voice level. "David is the only father she knows." "David is not her father," Eleanor said firmly. "He's her stepfather. There's a difference. I'm sure she has her own grandmother on her father's side." She didn't. Lily's paternal grandparents had both passed away before she was born. When I told David about the conversation, he seemed torn. "Mom comes from a different generation. Family meant something different to them. This isn't about generations, David. This is about a child feeling unwelcome in her own family." He promised, yet again, to speak with his mother. But weeks passed, and nothing changed. Eleanor continued to maintain her subtle but clear line between Lily and the rest of the grandchildren. The other adults in the family noticed, but did nothing. Allison once whispered to me, "I'm sorry about Mom. She's always been like this. Once she decides something, there's no changing her mind." Michael's wife Janet gave me sympathetic looks, but never stood up to Eleanor either. I considered limiting our contact with the extended family, but that solution had its own problems. David was close with his siblings, and Lily loved playing with her step-cousins. The children all got along wonderfully, unaware of the grandmother's arbitrary divisions. Isolating Lily from the only extended family she knew seemed like punishing her for Eleanor's behavior. Meanwhile, David and I were fighting more frequently. What had started as disagreements about his mother were spilling into other areas of our relationship. I resented his inability to stand up for our family, and he resented my inability to let things go. Our once solid partnership was developing cracks. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is," he said during one heated argument. "And you're not making it a big enough deal," I shot back. "This is your daughter now too. You promised to be her father. That means protecting her." The worst part was watching Lily become aware of her second-class status. She stopped asking to visit Grammy's house. She stopped showing Eleanor her artwork or school achievements. My bubbly, confident daughter became quiet and withdrawn around her grandmother, trying to make herself invisible to avoid rejection. "Does Grammy hate me?" she asked one night as I tucked her into bed. "No, sweetie," I said. "Heartbreaking. Grammy just has a hard time showing love sometimes. But she shows it to Jacob and Sophia and Madison and everyone else," Lily pointed out with the devastating logic of a child. I had no good answer for that. As the holidays approached again, I was dreading another round of obvious favoritism. David and I had several serious conversations about how to handle Christmas at Eleanor's house. "Maybe we should just do our own thing this year," I suggested. "Mom would never forgive us," David replied, showing where his priority lay. "It's tradition." "Then you need to really speak to her about treating Lily fairly," I insisted. "I'm serious, David. I won't put Lily through another holiday of being treated like she doesn't belong." He nodded solemnly. "I promise. This time will be different." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But as we packed the car for Eleanor's house on Christmas Eve, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. Eleanor's house was picture-perfect for Christmas, a massive Douglas fir in the living room decorated in matching gold and burgundy ornaments, garlands draped along the staircase, and twinkling lights in every window. The scent of cinnamon and pine filled the air. It looked like something from a magazine spread rather than a home where children regularly visited, but that was Eleanor's style, impressive rather than comfortable. All the family had gathered: Allison with her husband Frank and their twins, Michael with Janet and their 3 children. The cousins were running around excitedly while the adults prepared for dinner. Lily stayed close to me, quieter than usual. Eleanor had a tradition of formal Christmas Eve dinner followed by one special gift for each person to open before the main gift exchange on Christmas morning. The dining room table was set with her best china and crystal, name cards at each place. I checked twice, relieved to find Lily's name included, though she was seated at the far end of the table away from Eleanor. During dinner, Eleanor orchestrated the conversation, asking each grandchild about school and activities except Lily. When Lily volunteered that she had been chosen to sing a solo in the school holiday concert, Eleanor merely nodded before turning to ask Madison about her gymnastics competition. I caught David's eye across the table, raising my eyebrows pointedly. He gave a small nod, as if to say he noticed too and would address it later. After dinner came the evening gift ceremony. Eleanor made a big production of it, having everyone gather in the living room while she distributed specially wrapped packages from under the tree. "For Jacob, my talented artist," she announced, handing him a large flat package that turned out to be an expensive drawing tablet. "For Sophia, my little ballerina, a pair of professional quality ballet slippers and a gift certificate for private lessons. For Madison, who's growing into such a lovely young lady, a delicate silver bracelet with her birthstone. For Tyler, my sports star, a signed baseball from his favorite player. For little Abigail, who brings sunshine everywhere, a handcrafted dollhouse that Eleanor admitted she'd commissioned months ago." With each gift, my anxiety grew. Lily sat on the edge of her seat, hands folded in her lap, eyes wide with hope and anticipation. I felt David tense beside me as Eleanor placed the last special package back under the tree without acknowledging Lily. "That's everyone for tonight," Eleanor announced brightly. "The rest will be for tomorrow morning." The room fell silent. Lily's face crumpled momentarily before she composed herself, but everyone had seen it. Allison looked down at her lap, uncomfortably. Janet glanced at me with sympathy. The older children shifted awkwardly, aware something was wrong. "You forgot Lily," I said, my voice unnaturally calm despite the rage building inside me. Eleanor looked at Lily as if just noticing her presence. "Oh, I'm sorry, dear. I don't have an evening gift for you. But there will be something small tomorrow with the others." Something small, not a carefully selected gift that acknowledged her personality or interests. Not something planned months in advance. Something small, an afterthought. I waited for David to say something. He cleared his throat, but before he could speak, Tyler innocently asked the question that was hanging in the air. "Why doesn't Lily get a special present, Grammy?" Eleanor's smile tightened. "Well, Tyler, these are special gifts for my grandchildren." "But Lily's our cousin," Madison pointed out, old enough to recognize the unfairness. "She's your step-cousin," Eleanor corrected. "It's different. Lily has her own family." The words hung in the air like poison. Lily's eyes filled with tears, though she bravely tried to blink them away. "I am her family," David finally spoke up, but his voice lacked conviction. "Of course, dear, but you know what I mean," Eleanor dismissed him. "Now, who wants hot chocolate?" The awkward moment stretched as Eleanor bustled into the kitchen, acting as if nothing had happened. The other adults followed, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to challenge her further. The children remained in the living room, unusually subdued. I knelt beside Lily, who was trying so hard to be brave. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" She nodded stoically. "It's okay, Mommy. I know Grammy doesn't think I'm really family." Her matter-of-fact acceptance broke my heart more than tears would have. I pulled her into a hug, whispering fiercely, "You are family. You're my family and David's family, and we love you more than anything." Over her shoulder, I glared at David, who finally approached us. "Lily, can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked gently. I released her reluctantly. David led Lily to a quiet corner, speaking to her in low tones I couldn't hear. Whatever he said made her nod seriously, her expression changing from hurt to something more resolute. Later, when Lily was asleep in one of the guest rooms, I confronted David in the hallway. "This has to stop," I hissed. "Did you see her face? Your mother humiliated her in front of everyone." "I know," David said, and for once he seemed genuinely upset. "But I have a plan. I've had it for months, actually, waiting for something like this to happen again." "A plan? What we need is for you to stand up to your—" David ran his hand through his hair. "It's not a scheme. It's something my father arranged before he died. I didn't want to use it because it's going to blow up the whole family, but I don't see another choice now." "What are you talking about?" "Tomorrow morning. You'll see. Just trust me on this." I wasn't sure I did trust him anymore, but I was too exhausted to argue further. I went to bed seething, lying awake for hours planning various confrontations with Eleanor, fantasizing about packing our bags and leaving in the middle of the night. Christmas morning arrived with forced cheer. The adults drank coffee while the children tore into their stockings. Eleanor had filled stockings for all the grandchildren this year, Lily included, though hers contained fruit and pencils while the others overflowed with candy and small toys. Then came the main gift exchange. Eleanor sat in her armchair like a queen holding court, directing which gifts should be opened in which order. David's siblings and their spouses had gotten gifts for all the children, including Lily, treating them equally. But when Eleanor's gifts were distributed, the pattern continued. For each of her biological grandchildren, there was an iPad in their favorite color, a card containing what appeared to be substantial cash, and a piece of jewelry, watches for the boys, necklaces for the girls. For Lily, there was a coloring book and a pack of crayons. "Thank you, Grammy," Lily said politely, though her eyes darted to her cousin's much more lavish gifts. "You're welcome, dear," Eleanor replied distractedly, already focused on watching Madison open her next gift. I started to rise from my seat, prepared to finally say what needed to be said, but David placed a hand on my arm. "Wait," he murmured. "Just wait." I watched as he gave Lily a subtle nod. She took a deep breath and reached into the pocket of her Christmas dress, pulling out a small box wrapped in simple red paper. With determination in her little face, she walked directly up to Eleanor. "Grandma," she said clearly, using the term Eleanor had never encouraged her to use, "Dad told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." The room went silent as Lily slid the box across the side table to Eleanor. For a moment, Eleanor looked annoyed at the interruption of her carefully orchestrated gift ceremony. Then confusion crossed her face as she looked from the box to David. "What's this?" she asked sharply. "Just open it, Mom," David said. With obvious reluctance, Eleanor unwrapped the small package and opened the box inside. She stared at the contents for a long moment before her face drained of color. Then she screamed a short, sharp sound of shock that made everyone jump. "What is this?" David stood up, moving to stand beside Lily and placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Dad gave it to me before he died. He asked me to keep it safe and use it if necessary." I moved closer, finally seeing what had caused such a reaction. It was a legal document with Richard's name on it, a copy of what appeared to be an amendment to his will. "This isn't real," Eleanor insisted, though her trembling hands suggested she feared it was. "Richard would never do this behind my back." "He did, Mom," David said quietly. "Dad saw how you treated Amanda's niece at our engagement party. He was worried you might not accept Lily as part of the family. So he made provisions." Eleanor's face had gone from pale to mottled red. "You had no right to keep this from me." "I was hoping I'd never need to show it to you," David replied. "I was hoping you'd welcome Lily into the family on your own." Allison stepped forward. "What exactly is that, David?" David took a deep breath. Eleanor's hands clenched around the document. "This is preposterous. I managed Richard's estate. I would have known." "No, Mom. Dad set it up with a separate attorney. The trust was to be managed by Uncle James until all the grandchildren turned 21. Uncle James was Richard's brother, the only person who had ever successfully stood up to Eleanor." Michael joined the conversation. "Are you saying Dad left money specifically for the grandkids that Mom doesn't control?" "Yes," David confirmed. "Equal shares for each grandchild, including any who joined the family through marriage. He specifically mentioned future stepchildren by name in the amendment." Eleanor was rapidly flipping through the "It doesn't contradict it, Mom. It supplements it. Dad left you the house and most of his investments, but he put aside a significant portion specifically for his grandchildren, all of his grandchildren, to be treated equally." I looked at the second item that had fallen from the box, a handwritten letter. Eleanor noticed it too and snatched it up, her eyes darting across the page. Her hands began to shake more violently. "May I?" Allison asked, gently taking the letter from her mother's unresisting fingers. She read aloud. "Eleanor, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you're not honoring the promise you made to me about treating all our family with equal love and respect. I've known you for 40 years, and while your loyalty to blood is one of your strengths, your inability to expand your definition of family is your greatest weakness. Our son David will choose his own family. If that includes children not born to him, they are still his children and therefore our grandchildren. I will not allow any child in our family to feel unwelcome or less worthy of love and inheritance. The trust I've established will provide equally for all our grandchildren. This is non-negotiable. James will ensure my wishes are followed. I've loved you deeply, Eleanor, but I've also seen how your need for control has hurt our children. Please don't let it hurt our grandchildren too. Richard." The silence that followed was deafening. Eleanor sat rigid in her chair, the color completely drained from her face. Suddenly, she looked much older and smaller. "You knew about this all along," she finally asked David. "Dad gave me the document and letter right before his final hospital stay. He made me promise only to use it if necessary if you ever made Lily feel like she wasn't truly part of the family." Eleanor's eyes darted to Lily, who was watching the adult drama with confusion. And you told a child to deliver this bombshell? On Christmas. I gave Lily the box months ago, David explained. I told her that if Grammy ever made her feel left out again, she should give you the box. I didn't explain what was in it. I was hoping she'd never need to use it. Eleanor stood abruptly. I need to make some calls. The trust is ironclad, Mom, David said. Uncle James confirmed it last year when I asked him. You went behind my back to James? Eleanor's voice rose shrilly. Just like you went behind all our backs with Dad's estate, Michael interjected, an edge to his voice. You told us Dad left everything to you, with just sentimental items for us. You've been controlling everyone with money that should have been partially ours all along. The floodgates had opened. Years of resentment and submission to Eleanor's. As the siblings aired their grievances, I took Lily upstairs, away from the escalating tension. She didn't need to witness the family imploding, even if it was ultimately in her defense. Did I do something wrong, Mommy? She asked worriedly. No, sweetheart, I assured her. You did exactly what David asked you to do. Sometimes adults have complicated problems that take a while to fix. I set her up with a movie on my tablet in one of the guest rooms, then returned downstairs where the argument had shifted from the trust itself to years of Eleanor's financial manipulation. You made me turn down a promotion because you said we couldn't afford to move without your help, Michael was saying. Meanwhile, you were sitting on Dad's money that was partially meant for us. Your father wanted me to make sensible decisions for the family. Eleanor defended herself, though her usual imperious tone had deflated considerably. No, Mom, David said firmly. Dad wanted us to make our own decisions. You wanted to control everyone. Eleanor turned to me suddenly. This is your doing. You've turned my children against me. David stepped between us. That's enough, Mom. Amanda has nothing to do with this. This is about how you've treated Lily and, by extension, how you've treated all of us for years. It stops now. For perhaps the first time in her life, Eleanor seemed genuinely speechless. Her carefully constructed world of control was crumbling around her. The iPads, she finally said weakly. The jewelry. The cash. Those were from the children's own trust funds, weren't they? Money they were entitled to all along. David nodded. According to Uncle James, yes. Each child should have been receiving birthday and Christmas gifts from the trust since Dad died. Instead, you've been presenting trust disbursements as generous gifts from you. The revelation seemed to be the final straw for the family's patience. Allison announced that they would be leaving after lunch rather than staying until the 27th as planned. Michael and Janet began quietly packing their family's things as well. Eleanor remained in her armchair, looking shell-shocked as her perfect Christmas and her carefully maintained facade of benevolent matriarch disintegrated. David took my hand. I squeezed his hand. At least you had a backup plan. Dad knew her better than anyone, David said with a sad smile. He loved her, but he saw her clearly. As the family began dispersing to different parts of the house, processing the morning's revelations in their own ways, Eleanor finally spoke again. The girl, she said. Lily, where is she? Upstairs, I answered cautiously. Away from all this drama. Eleanor nodded slowly. Perhaps that's best. She paused, then added almost to herself, Richard always did know me too well. It was as close to an admission of wrongdoing as I suspected we would get that day. Lunch was a tense affair. Eleanor had retreated to her bedroom, claiming a headache, while the rest of us picked at ham sandwiches in uncomfortable silence. The children, sensing the adults' distress, but not understanding its cause, were subdued. Is Grammy sick? Sophia asked her mother. Grammy has a lot to think about, Allison answered diplomatically. After lunch, true to their word, Allison and Frank began loading their car. Michael and Janet were doing the same. You don't all have to leave, David said, though without much conviction. I think it's best, Michael replied. Mom needs time to process, and frankly, so do we. The cousins exchanged tearful goodbyes, promising to see each other soon under better circumstances. Lily hugged each of her step-cousins tightly, especially Madison, who whispered something in her ear that made her smile for the first time that day. As the cars pulled away, David, Lily, and I were left alone with Eleanor, who still hadn't emerged from her room. "Should we go too?" I asked David quietly. He shook his head. "Not yet. There are things that need to be said. Can you take Lily for a walk or something? I need to talk to Mom alone." I took Lily to a nearby park where she played half-heartedly on the swings. Her usual exuberance was dimmed by the morning's events, though she couldn't fully understand what had happened. "Is Grammy mad at me for giving her the box?" she asked as I pushed her gently. "No, sweetheart. Grammy is upset about some grown-up things that have nothing to do with you." "Will we still see Jacob and Sophia and everyone?" "Of course we will. They're your cousins." "But Grammy said they're my step-cousins. That it's different." I stopped the swing and knelt in front of her. "Lily, family isn't just about who's related by blood. It's about who loves you and who you love. Jacob, Sophia, Madison, Tyler, and Abigail all love you. You're their cousin, period." She seemed to accept this, though I knew the conversation was far from over. Children absorb more than we realize, and Lily had clearly internalized Eleanor's message that she was somehow less than the other grandchildren. When we returned to the house, David was sitting alone in the living room, looking exhausted but somehow lighter. "How did it go?" I asked after sending Lily upstairs to pack her things. "About as well as could be expected," he sighed. "Mom's worldview has been completely upended. She's built her identity around being the family matriarch who controls everything. Finding out Dad didn't trust her completely with his estate has shaken her to the core." "Did she acknowledge how she's treated Lily?" David ran a hand through his hair. "Sort of. She said she never meant to hurt anyone, that she just believes family is family. I told her that Lily is my family now, and if she wants me in her life, Lily comes with me. No exceptions." "How did she take that?" "She cried. I've never seen my mother cry before, not even at Dad's funeral." He looked troubled by the memory. "She asked for time to adjust her thinking, whatever that means." "Do you believe she can change?" David considered the question seriously. "I don't know. Part of me doubts it. But another part remembers that Dad loved her for a reason. There must be more to her than what we've seen lately." Eleanor emerged from her room as we were packing the car. She looked smaller somehow, her perfect posture slightly stooped, her immaculate makeup washed away. "You're leaving too," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," David answered simply. "We'll talk after the holidays." Eleanor nodded, then her eyes found Lily, who was standing partially behind me. "Lily," she said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "I'm sorry you didn't get a nice gift like your cousins. That was wrong of me." Lily, ever gracious, nodded solemnly. "It's okay, Grammy." "No," Eleanor said. It was a small moment, hardly the dramatic reconciliation one might hope for, but it felt like the first crack in Eleanor's rigid worldview. The drive home was quiet, each of us lost in our own thoughts. When we arrived, David carried a sleeping Lily to her bed while I made us both much-needed cups of tea. "What happens now?" I asked when he joined me in the kitchen. "Uncle James is coming to town next week. He'll explain everything about the trust to all of us, me, Allison, Michael. Mom won't be involved in those discussions." "And Eleanor?" David stared into his tea. "Mom has some hard choices to make. She can adapt to the new reality, or she can fight it and potentially lose her relationship with all of us." In the days that followed, the family communications were constant. Allison called daily, processing her feelings about her mother's deception and control. Michael and Janet invited us over for dinner, where the adults talked late into the night about growing up under Eleanor's thumb and how none of them had ever felt able to challenge her. She always made it clear that her approval and financial support were conditional, Allison explained. We all just accepted it as normal. Uncle James arrived 3 days after Christmas, a tall, genial man with Richard's kind eyes and easy laugh. He met with the siblings at a local restaurant, laying out the details of Richard's trust for the grandchildren. Your father was a wise man, he told them. He loved your mother deeply, but he was clear-eyed about her flaws. He wanted to ensure that all his grandchildren would be treated equally, regardless of how they came into the family. The trust was substantial enough to pay for each child's college education with money left over. Richard had also left letters for each of his children, which James delivered. David read his aloud to me that night, tears streaming down his face as he heard his father's voice one more time in the carefully chosen words. Meanwhile, Eleanor had gone silent. No calls, no texts, not even to her favorite grandchildren. According to Allison, who had checked on her, she was taking time to reflect, an unprecedented activity for a woman who had always been so certain of her rightness. A week after New Year's, the extended family gathered at our house, everyone except Eleanor. The cousins played together upstairs while the adults continued working through their complicated feelings about the Christmas revelation. I feel like I'm grieving, Michael admitted. Not just Dad all over again, but the idea I had of our family. I thought we were close, but we were just controlled. Mom's not a monster, Allison countered. She loved us the only way she knew how. The question is whether she can learn a different way, Janet pointed out. The conversation continued well into the evening, with no clear resolution, but a sense that something fundamental had shifted in the family dynamic. The siblings were talking more openly than they ever had, sharing feelings and experiences that had previously been suppressed in the name of keeping peace with Eleanor. For Lily, the most important change was seeing David stand up for her. She had always been somewhat cautious around him, as if unsure of her place in his affections. Now she sought him out more, asked for his help with homework, wanted him to read her bedtime stories. You're her hero now, I told him one night. You showed her that she matters to you. I should have done it sooner, he said regretfully. You did it when it counted most, I assured him. As January progressed, we began to establish new patterns as a family Sunday dinners with Allison's family one week, game nights with Michael's the next. The cousins' bonds grew stronger without Eleanor's artificial distinctions. Lily blossomed in this new environment where she was unquestionably equal and valued. The only shadow was Eleanor's continued absence. Despite her flaws, she was still David's mother, still the grandmother of these children. Her silence was its own kind of manipulation, and we all felt it. Finally, nearly a month after Christmas, Eleanor called David and asked to meet just the two of them. He returned from that meeting looking thoughtful. She's seeing a therapist, he told me with evident surprise. Apparently Dad had been suggesting it for years, and she always refused. Now she's going twice a week. That's unexpected. She says she's been doing a lot of thinking about why she needs to control everything. She traced it back to her own childhood, her parents' divorce, the instability she felt. He shook his head in wonder. I'm 40 years old, and this is the first time my mother has ever mentioned her feelings about her parents' divorce. Did she say anything about Lily? David nodded slowly. She asked if she could write Lily a letter. I said I'd have to read it first, and she agreed. She said she's not ready to see everyone yet, but she's working on it. The letter arrived 2 days later. David read it first, then handed it to me with raised eyebrows. It was surprisingly heartfelt, an apology written in simple language a 7-year-old could understand, acknowledging that Eleanor had been unfair and that her behavior had nothing to do with Lily herself. Richard always wanted a granddaughter with red hair like his mother, she wrote. He would have adored you. After I approved it, we gave the letter to Lily, helping her understand the parts that were still too complex for her. She immediately wanted to write back, spending an entire afternoon carefully crafting a response with drawings in the margins. Her capacity for forgiveness humbled me. February brought fresh challenges as we navigated the new family dynamics. David was speaking with his mother weekly now, cautiously rebuilding their relationship on more equal footing. It wasn't easy. Eleanor occasionally slipped back into her controlling patterns, and David had to remind her firmly of the new boundaries. She asked about our investment portfolio yesterday, he told me one evening. I had to explain that our finances are not up for discussion anymore. How did she take it? Not great, but better than she would have 6 months ago. Her therapist apparently told her to count to 10 before responding when she feels defensive. I could practically hear her counting over the phone. The siblings were supporting each other through this transition. Years of conditioning didn't disappear overnight, and they all struggled with setting healthy boundaries with their mother. They started meeting monthly without spouses or children, just the three of them to check in and hold each other accountable. Michael almost bought a new car last week because Mom suggested his current one wasn't safe enough for the kids, Allison reported during one family dinner. We had to stage an intervention. Despite these occasional backslides, progress was being made. Eleanor was learning, slowly and imperfectly, that her children would remain in her life even without her financial leverage, that their love wasn't conditional on her control. For my part, I was working on forgiveness. Eleanor had hurt my child. A mother doesn't forget that easily. But I also recognized that holding on to anger wouldn't help Lily or strengthen our family. She's flawed, not evil, David reminded me when my resentment surfaced. She's trying to change. At her age. I questioned skeptically. Dad always said Mom was the most stubborn person he'd ever met. Once she sets her mind to something, she commits fully. It seemed Eleanor had set her mind to repairing her relationship with her family, starting with her children. The grandchildren, including Lily, were a more complicated matter. The older ones had years of positive experiences with their grandmother to balance against her recent behavior, but Lily had only known rejection from her. Building trust would take time if it was possible at all. David and I discussed this challenge extensively. We agreed that any relationship between Lily and Eleanor needed to develop naturally, without forcing either of them. Eleanor would need to earn Lily's trust, and Lily would need space to decide for herself how much of a relationship she wanted. What if she never wants a relationship with my mother? David asked one night, voicing his deepest fear. Then we respect that, I answered firmly. Lily's emotional well-being comes first. In March, Eleanor asked if she could attend Madison's piano recital, where all the family would be gathered. It would be her first time seeing everyone together since Christmas. We prepared Lily carefully, explaining that Grammy was trying to learn how to be a better grandmother, but that it might take time. You don't have to hug her or talk to her if you don't want to, I assured her. Just be polite. The recital itself was mercifully uneventful. Eleanor sat apart from the rest of us, applauding politely for Madison's performance. Afterward, at the reception, she approached us cautiously. Hello, Lily, she said, bending slightly to meet my daughter's eyes. I liked your drawing very much, the one you sent me of the butterfly garden. Lily nodded solemnly. I put extra purple ones because you said purple is your favorite color. A look of surprise crossed Eleanor's face, surprised that Lily had remembered this detail, perhaps, or that she had cared enough to incorporate it. That was very thoughtful of you, she said softly. As spring progressed, these small moments accumulated. Eleanor began sending Lily postcards from her travels, simple messages, without the excessive gifts she used to lavish on the other grandchildren. Just little notes saying she'd seen a flower Lily might like or a building that reminded her of one of Lily's drawings. In April, Uncle James organized a family meeting to formally explain the grandchildren's trust to everyone, including Eleanor. It was held on neutral ground, a private room at his hotel, with all the adults present. Richard established this trust to ensure that all his grandchildren would be treated equally, James explained. The funds are to be used for education primarily, with additional disbursements at ages 18, 21, and 25. Eleanor sat stiffly as James outlined the details, but she didn't object or try to assert control. When he finished, she simply said, "Richard was right to do this. I wouldn't have been fair." Her admission stunned everyone into silence. "I've been seeing Dr. Patterson twice a week," she continued. "She's helping me understand why I've always needed to control everything and everyone around me. It stems from my childhood, but that's not an excuse. I've hurt people I love because I couldn't let go of my need for control." She turned to look directly at me. "Especially Lily. And you, Amanda. I was threatened by your place in David's life. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." I hadn't expected an apology, certainly not a public one. I nodded, not quite ready to verbalize forgiveness, but acknowledging her effort. The family finances were reorganized according to Richard's original wishes. Eleanor retained control of her personal assets, but the grandchildren's trust was officially placed under James's management until they came of age. Holiday and birthday gifts would come directly from the trust as Richard had intended, with Eleanor free to give additional personal gifts if she chose. "I'd like to do something for Lily," she told David and me privately after the meeting. "Not a gift exactly, but a gesture. To show her that I consider her my granddaughter in every way that matters." "What did you have in mind?" David asked cautiously. "I'd like to update the family photo wall at my house. The one in the main hallway. I've ordered frames for new photos of all the grandchildren, including Lily. But I wanted to ask if you have a recent portrait of her I could use." It was a small thing in some ways, but symbolically important. That photo wall had been Eleanor's visual representation of who she considered family. Lily's absence from it had been a constant, silent rejection. "I think we can find something suitable," David said, his voice thick with emotion. The new family photos went up in May. Eleanor invited everyone over for a casual barbecue, a departure from her usual formal, entertaining style. The children played in the backyard, while the adults maintained a cautious but civil atmosphere. When Lily saw her school portrait hanging alongside her cousin's, her face lit up with surprise and pleasure. She didn't say anything, but throughout the afternoon, I noticed her glancing at it repeatedly, as if reassuring herself it was really there. "It's a start," David murmured, following my gaze. And it was. A small step on a long journey of healing, but a meaningful one. By summer, 6 months after the Christmas confrontation, our family had found a new equilibrium. It wasn't perfect, real families rarely are, but it was healthier than before. Eleanor had continued her therapy, sometimes inviting David or his siblings to join for family sessions. She was learning to express her feelings directly instead of manipulating situations to get her way. She was practicing asking for what she wanted instead of assuming control. "It's exhausting," she admitted during one candid conversation. "I've spent 70 years doing things one way. Learning a new approach is like trying to write with my left hand." But she persisted, motivated by the desire to remain connected to her children and grandchildren. The greatest evidence of her change came in June, when she approached me privately. "I'd like to apologize properly to Lily," she said. "Not just in a letter, but face to face. If you think she's ready for that." I considered it carefully. Lily had been watching Eleanor's efforts over the past months with the clear-eyed assessment that children often bring to adult behavior. She had noticed the photo wall, the postcards, the way Eleanor now asked about her school and activities during family gatherings. "I think she might be," I said. Eleanor nodded. "Of course. Whatever you think is best." We arranged a simple outing, just Eleanor, Lily, and me at a pottery painting studio that Lily loved. As they sat side by side painting ceramic animals, Eleanor spoke quietly. "Lily, I want to tell you that I'm very sorry for the way I treated you before. I was wrong to make you feel like you weren't part of our family." Lily concentrated on painting whiskers on her cat figurine. "Why didn't you like me?" she asked simply. Eleanor paused, clearly working to formulate an honest answer a child could understand. It wasn't about you, Lily. It was about me. I had some wrong ideas about what makes someone family. I thought it was only about being born into a family, but I've learned that family is really about love and caring for each other. Lily considered this. So you do think I'm family now? Yes, Eleanor said firmly. You are my granddaughter in all the ways that matter. And I hope someday you might be able to think of me as your grandmother. But I understand if that takes time. Lily tested a boundary. The other kids call you Grammy. You can call me Grammy too, if you want to, Eleanor offered. Or Grandma Eleanor. Or just Eleanor. Whatever feels right to you. Lily nodded, returning to her painting. I'll think about it. It wasn't an immediate reconciliation, but it was an honest exchange, perhaps the first they'd ever had. Lily knew she had the power to decide the nature of their relationship, and Eleanor respected that. The summer brought more healing moments. When Eleanor hosted her annual 4th of July celebration, she asked Lily to help her bake cookies, an activity she had previously reserved for Sophia and Madison. When David's birthday came around, Eleanor gave him a photo album that included several pages dedicated to his life with me and Lily. In August, we planned a family vacation to the beach, something we'd never done before. Traditionally, Eleanor had taken each set of grandchildren on separate trips, maintaining her control over family activities. This time, all 3 siblings and their families would be going together, with Eleanor joining for just the final weekend. Are you sure you're ready for this? I asked David as we packed. 5 days with your entire family? I'm looking forward to it, he said, surprising me. For the first time, it feels like we're choosing to be together because we want to be, not because Mom is orchestrating everything. The vacation was chaotic in the best possible way: cousins building sandcastles, adults taking turns cooking dinner, game nights that dissolved into laughter. When Eleanor arrived for the final weekend, she fit into the established flow rather than trying to direct it. The most significant moment came on our last evening at the beach. Eleanor had brought small gifts for each of the grandchildren, not expensive electronics or jewelry, but thoughtful items related to their individual interests. For Lily, there was a professional quality sketchbook and drawing pencils. Your dad mentioned you've been taking art classes this summer, Eleanor said as Lily unwrapped them. I thought you might like these. Thank you, Grammy, Lily replied without hesitation, using the term for the first time. Eleanor's eyes glistened, but she simply nodded, accepting the gift of that word without making a scene. Later that evening, as the family gathered around a bonfire on the beach, Eleanor asked if she could say something. I know I haven't been the mother or grandmother I should have been, she began. I've been controlling and judgmental and stubborn. Richard knew my flaws better than anyone, and he loved me anyway. But he also took steps to protect all of you from those flaws, which shows just how wise he was. She looked around the circle, meeting each person's eyes in turn. I'm trying to become someone worthy of this family, all of this family. I can't promise I'll never slip back into old habits, but I can promise I'll keep trying to do better. It wasn't a dramatic speech, but its simplicity made it powerful. Eleanor was not a woman who easily admitted fault or expressed vulnerability. That she was doing so now, without qualification or defense, demonstrated genuine change. As summer turned to fall, our new family patterns solidified. Sunday dinners rotated between households. Holidays were celebrated together, but with the hosting duties shared. Eleanor was included but no longer dominated every gathering. The trust was working as Richard had intended, providing equally for all the grandchildren's education and future needs. Eleanor had stopped treating her financial resources as tools for control, instead focusing on rebuilding relationships based on genuine connection. For Lily, the greatest change was in her relationship with David. His willingness to stand up for her, to claim her publicly as his daughter, had transformed their bond. She sought his advice, valued his approval, and included him in school projects about my family. One evening in September, I found them sitting together on the porch swing, looking at the stars. Do you think Grandpa Richard can see us from heaven? I like to think so, David replied. He would be very proud of you. And of you too, Lily said wisely. For giving me his box. David kissed the top of her head. That was the easiest decision I ever made. You're my daughter, Lily. In all the ways that matter. I watched them from the doorway, my heart full. The path to this moment had been painful, but the outcome was worth it. A true family, bound by love rather than obligation or blood. Eleanor still had moments of reverting to old patterns, especially under stress. The difference was that now everyone, including Eleanor herself, recognized when it was happening and could address it directly. Mom, you're doing that thing again, David would say gently, and Eleanor would take a deep breath, recalibrate, and try a different approach. Richard's foresight had catalyzed a necessary change, but it was the family's collective commitment to healing that had truly transformed us. We had learned that sometimes the strongest families are those that have been broken and rebuilt, stronger at the mended places. As for Lily, she had gained something precious, the knowledge that she was worth fighting for, that she belonged irrevocably in our family. No gift, not iPads or jewelry or cash, could ever compare to that certainty. What do you think makes someone family? I asked her one night as I tucked her into bed. She considered the question seriously. Love, she said finally. And sticking together even when it's hard. Out of the mouth of babes comes wisdom we adults spend lifetimes trying to learn. Have you ever had to stand up for someone you love against your own family? Would you have handled the situation differently than we did? I'd love to hear your stories and thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more real-life family stories that show the messy, complicated, beautiful truth of what it means to be family. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember that true family is defined by love, not blood, and sometimes the most important gifts aren't things at all, but the courage to speak up for what's right.